in a few minutes, show you about JFK here. And let's see here, doing my best. Okay, now you've seen this for a while, so let's go on to the next. I wasn't intending to speak today. Other people are going to do this, but things change. So I'm just stepping in here. Okay. What you need to know about JFK is the pain. This is a man who had to fight pain most of his life. A lot of people they think, oh, this guy was, Mr. taking drugs all the time. He had Addison's disease. At that time, they gave him a lot of steroids that softened your bones, that softened the sternum, so that your chest would start collapsing. His back started collapsing. This man was in pain most of his life from his back. Besides the steroids, steroids make you impotent. So then you have doctors. Back then, when we took birth control pills, they were way too high in dosage. They were giving women blood clots. You know about this. So when they're giving him doses of testosterone because of the impotence, they're giving way too much. It turned him into a stallion. Okay? JFK the stallion. Okay? And he's just doing what the doctor. So a lot of this, that's saying that how bad he was about all this, a lot of the addiction and all that was the doctors. But he was in dreadful pain. Here he is. So let's go look at some of this. We have the History Channel. On the History Channel, if you go there, it says that when the PT-109 was rammed in half, and how much of it was his fault, which really wasn't really that much, that he and his men had to float a raft for 4 miles. They did not even mention this. I'm going to read it to you, okay? Jack rescued his crewmen, beginning with pulling one of his badly burned men 4 miles through seawater by a strap clenched in his teeth. Carried him on his bad back all the way, saved his life. And they don't, in the so-called History Channel, they left all that out. There's the Smithsonian magazine said that John F. Kennedy contributed nothing to the presidency except charm. Yes, so you need to know, why are they doing this? They're doing this because they don't want you to care about him when you find out who really killed him. You're going to say, oh, who cares? He was no good. Well, I think differently. He was given the last rites several times in his life after serious operations. During one of those, he wrote the book, Profiles in Courage, and you're saying, oh, he got lots of help. Not that much. Now, despite this, we have all sorts of pictures of him playing with his kids, carrying him around, all that, as if he were a normal dad. He's got this back brace on. There are dozens of pictures showing him. Here's the next one. He taught his son, John, to salute the flag, and that's why you have the salute. Did you know that? John F. Kennedy taught his little son, when he saw the flag, to salute it. And he sees his father's coffin going by, draped with the American flag, and salutes it. He was a very good father. As far as his love affairs and all that, if you knew that his father was at the school, if you're really rich, you have your mother taking care of the kids, and then you have your mistresses, He took his son, John, to a brothel when he was only 12 years old. So much for Dad, okay? And this had an effect on him. In the end, near the end of his life, he and Jackie really made up because of the death of their son, baby Patrick Kennedy. Lee Oswald told me this. By the way, Marina Oswald said the same thing, that her husband, Lee Oswald, wept when he heard that baby Patrick Kennedy had died, because we had a lot of inside information, a lot more than you would believe. People who knew Kennedy and passed the information along. I know a heck of a lot more than I wish I knew about how Lee was treated, for example, when he was in custody. Enough to make you cry. And what I can tell you about all of this is that in the long run, there is so much that we could have told you about Kennedy that you don't know. His enemies. Here are some of his enemies. They were after the mafia. His dad made deals with the mafia. And here, you know, like you have in your book bag, it says, you know, one man, one person can make a difference. Okay? And everybody should try. He was raised that way by his mother. Here's another thing he did. A lot of people think, oh, but we have this speech out there where he's real nice to the feds. Oh, he was nice to them in his speeches. And then he goes and creates $5 billion worth, which is equivalent today of, get this, $40 billion today in real money. They didn't like that. Nobody was using those dollar bills. There's only one other person that ever tried to do that. His name was Abraham Lincoln, and he had a similar fate, didn't he? All right? Now, this is what I want you to hear. Here we go. Now, we better have our sound here. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, this is supposed to be internet connection here.
Today should know, be he friend or foe, that the United States has both the will and the weapons to join free men in standing up to their responsibilities. All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner. The path we have chosen for the present is full of hazards, as all paths are. But it is the one most consistent with our character and courage as a nation and our commitments around the world. The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender or submission.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute, where no Catholic prelate would tell the president, should he be Catholic, how to act, and no Protestant minister would tell his parishioners for whom to vote, where no church or church school is granted any public funds or political preference, and where no man is denied public office merely because his religion differs from the president who might appoint him or the people who might elect him.
I have therefore chosen this time and place to discuss a topic on which ignorance too often abounds and the truth too rarely perceived, and that is the most important topic on earth, peace. What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the Scriptures and is as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities. Whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated. If an American, because his skin is dark, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if, in short, he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place? Who among us would then be content with the counsels of patience and delay? 100 years of delay have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves, yet their heirs, their grandsons, are not fully free. They are not yet freed from the bonds of injustice. They are not yet freed from social and economic oppression. And this nation, for all its hopes and all its boasts, will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
Okay. At this time, no. Well, you see, thank you, Sean. The outside world intruded. All right, now, I'm going to go quickly here. I'm going to go right back here. Yeah. Now, the reason we're talking about Kennedy so much, this is his 100th year anniversary. And we're here because of what happened to Kennedy. We want justice for Kennedy. If you think justice has been done, I've got a bridge to sell you. All right, here we go. Some of the enemies, like Joseph Military, I'm representing here the anti-Catholics, the racists, the KKK, and so on, just to show you the list of what this man was against. How about the anti-Castro militancy? He had to take the blame for what the CIA did not do properly. CIA almost really looked like they're blackmailing Kennedy by making him look like a bad leader. He really saved us from nuclear war. You can count on that. Here, look at this. The mafia, they felt betrayed because it was rigged so that Kennedy won that election, like many other elections in our country, in other places, by means that were not exactly the will of the people. Carlos Marcello, New Orleans. I knew this guy, I met him. I didn't knew him as much as anybody did in New Orleans. This man said, I hate Bobby Kennedy, and he had good right, because Bobby dumped him over, first in Guatemala, and then when they were treating him real nice over there in Guatemala, he had him dumped into Honduras. And I talked to his granddaughter, and David Ferry was helped rescue him, but he had a trial coming up that Bobby Kennedy was in charge of to deport him. That trial was ended on November 22nd. That's how much power this guy had. At which time he was able to be declared through rigged jury that he was innocent and that he really was born in Guatemala and so on. So he rubbed that in Bobby Kennedy's face. You know who else rubbed something in Bobby Kennedy's face that day? Lyndon Johnson called Bobby Kennedy and said, what is the oath I need to enter office? Can you tell me where I can find it? He did that to the brother of the man who was murdered, okay? That's what Lyndon Johnson did. San Giancana is very interesting in across, you find out that they talk about our project in New Orleans a little bit, just like Jim Garrison did. Hoover ignored the mafia. Why? Because of pictures like this that were a lot worse. Because we called him Mr. Hoover. No, we called him Mrs. Hoover. All right? And it took years. I mean, we knew all this stuff back then. The people were in the inside, and we talked about stuff like this. And Secret Service, a lot of people know it's a division of the Treasury, and the feds had great influence on that. And by the way, this is this famous Altgens photo. They say the shot came from the Texas School Book Depository on the 6th floor. There's not one Secret Service man looking up. This is right after the shot was fired. They're all looking behind them at the Deltex building, the records building or the Deltex building. They're not looking up at the 6th floor. Notice that? Not a one. Do they jump and get Kennedy out of there with the first shot? No. They stand right where they are and let him get gunned down. Hoover, on the same day that Lee Oswald was killed, they say killed Kennedy, he didn't do it, but that's what Hoover said. On November 22nd, the day that Kennedy was shot, Hoover was asked, should we look at all these other people? And he wrote, not necessary to cover as true subject located. He had solved the case in 4 hours. You need to know that. That's what he did. And here's some of his friends. Rich Oilman. Byrd was friends with Lyndon Johnson, very close friend, and all these people, Murchison and Richardson and so on. Byrd owned the Texas School Book Depository where Lee, and I'll be talking about that later, how he was manipulated to take that job there by someone who knew how to do it. And the military-industrial complex, LBJ, Halliburton, Brown and Root. Today it's Brown and Root, it's Kellogg Brown and Root. It is still in operation all over Iraq, JFK. Oh, we could go on and on. McCloy on the Warren Commission. It had the World Bank at one time, and with great power. And above all, the kingpin, because he could have stopped it, is this man who had photo after photo of him staring at JFK with hatred. Oh, there are so many of them. We're just showing some on film everywhere. He's always staring at him. He would stare at him while he's making speeches. And he's, on and on. He's wanted to be president so badly. All right? He just can't help himself. He just couldn't do it. So here's JFK in a rocking chair. The very night Kennedy was killed, they started stripping out everything out of the White House. And that rocking chair was thrown into the hall. It wasn't even midnight yet. It was still the November 22nd. And here's Evelyn Lincoln leaving. She got as much stuff as she could. A lot of stuff was stolen. He threw it all out. He had it all thrown out into the halls. But Kennedy, he wanted to be so much like Kennedy, he got himself a rocking chair. Yes. You understand what he wanted? This is why we do focus on Lyndon Johnson so much.